for some analysis, we're now joined by Advocate Evans Ogada, who's a researcher and associate editor at the Platform for Law, Justice and Society. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good to hear from you.
All right. So Somalia has, these elections have been a headache for a significant period of time now. And I just wonder why there was any optimism that they would progress this time around. There's issues that are holding them back, are not dissolving.
Yes, and for your viewers who are watching, you have to understand that Somalia faces structural challenges. Somalia has a weak central government that only exists for the reason that it's being propped up by the African Union forces. And these African Union forces are funded by the United States and other partners like the European Union. So it has a weak central, it doesn't have the finances and the capacity to have universal suffrage and elections in the normal manner that you will want to have in any other strong democracy out there.
So what needs to happen, do you think, for, and we'll talk about the militant insurgency just now, but let's just talk about that which they hope to be able to control and under their influence, which is largely just Mogadishu, I guess. What needs to happen for progress to be made?
Well, like you correctly observed, segment, the reason why the elections are incapable of being held on the 15th of March is for the reason that the government says that there's around some 55 or so, what they call the House of the People, their national parliament. Those 55 MPs and 54 senators will sit in one joint sitting, and this one joint sitting is expected to elect a president indirectly. So the argument is that if these slots are not filled in, then there will be not quorum to elect the president indirectly as envisaged by Somali law.
So since Farmajo's term expired, is this the main sticking point? Who will replace him?
Well, it appears the continuation of Farmajo after the expiry of his term is a problem. It raises fundamental questions. Under what mandate is he exercising the reins of office? That's a fundamental constitutional and legal question. He appears to only be in office for the reason that power abhors vacuum. He's there as a figurehead, and so that we don't have a vacuum for the time being. But nonetheless, we have enough candidates who have lined up to seek the office of president. We have his own former Prime Minister, Omar Abdi Rashid Sharmaki, who is a two-time Prime Minister in Somalia. We have several cabinet ministers. We have former President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, who wants to come in and try his luck again. So we don't have a shortage of candidates. We have so many people lining up to go against Farmajo. The only problem is that due to this stated reason that the lower house does not have quorum, it's not quorate, then the elections cannot proceed. We don't know how long it will take for these slots to be filled in. That seems to be the problem and the tragedy in Somalia right now, insofar as elections being held is concerned.
All right, before we talk about Al-Shabaab, I'm curious about some of these independent and disputed territories like Puntland, for example. Where do they fit into this equation?
Well, these semi-autonomous regions have been running their own affairs for quite some time, operating independent of Mogadishu. Remember, the authority of Farmajo and the central government in Somalia has been quite tenuous. It has been weak. And he's only able to claim a national law, because international law recognizes Jubaland, Puntland, and Somaliland as part of Somalia proper, the Federal Republic of Somalia. So these offshoots cannot be as separate states. But other than that, Farmajo and the central government do not exercise much in terms of control in Somaliland, for example. Somaliland has its own currency, has its own government. Some regional states have proceeded to recognize Somaliland as a subject of international law. So it's quite a trying state of affairs in Somalia. It's quite difficult around there.
All right, so we're talking about elections, we're talking about a central government, but the reality is, for as long as Al-Shabaab exists and has swathes of territory that it controls, does it matter who's in charge of Somalia and Mogadishu?
Well, the Al-Shabaab phenomenon has to be understood not only as a fundamentalist security problem, but it also has to be understood in the context of the history of Somalia. Remember, Somalia was colonized by 3 different powers at some point. The British, the Italians, and the French, as you go towards Djibouti. Now, the manner in which it came into being as a state was not in a manner that was impressive or encouraging of cohesion, for the lack of a better term. So Somalia has never been one neat state. It has only been held during the time of the late dictator, the president who was toppled in 1991, Siad Barre. So Somalia is weak as a federal entity, as a failed state. Do we allow the clan politics that explains this fragmentation? Do we allow these clans to go their separate way and form their own independent states? Or do we continue holding it together by use of force? These people have to accept to live together. The AU cannot police some form of forced unity forever. That question has to be thought out at some point.
Advocate Evans Ogada, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And we wish the people of Somalia the best. I mean, it's just dealing with so much on so many different fronts. Thanks so much indeed for your insights.
Thank you very much, Peter. Wishing them well as well.